Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Cord Bernowski, publisher of Yankee News, coming to you from the world-famous Parkway Diner in Stamford, Connecticut. So glad to be back in our roost again. I was away on vacation and other things were coming up, so it would have been 3 weeks if I hadn't been here tonight. And so I'm watching Eric, our senior executive producer with the gray hair. He's checking through a few things there. But anyway, I would like to get down to business. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that today is Martin Luther King Day, all right? And to quote his most famous quote, which has been forgotten by today's liberals, a man should be judged by the content of his character and not by the color of his skin. And boy, have they forgotten that big time. You know, I think we could call liberals today the new KKK. There's a thought to chew on. Okay. First of all, Yankee T News, subscribe, please. We keep managing to get a few more subscribers, but we need a lot more subscribers. Tell Tong time. You are the sanctuary state king, Mr. Tong, and as you may recall, President Trump made a big deal out of the fact that he ain't giving no more federal money to sanctuary states and cities. So that sounds to me like Connecticut might be suffering a bit. You've been denying that we have sanctuary cities and sanctuary status, but that would make you a liar, nothing new. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out because I have a feeling it's going to be a substantial amount of money that Connecticut will not have. Of course, this will become an excuse for Lamont and the goofy legislature we have to raise taxes, but that will be another discussion for another day. Meantime, Tina Peters, somebody has to free her. She has been totally overshadowed by all these other events, and it is very unfortunate. This woman continues to suffer in these miserable conditions in Colorado State Prison. She needs to be released. End of discussion. All right. Now, first, my theme for tonight. I've been noticing a few things about AI, and I started to look at different pieces of this, and so a picture kind of emerged that became worthy, that's right, worthy of an op-ed. And the title of the op-ed is that AI's motto is lie or die. See, the facts are out there. It's right in front of you. AI is hitting a wall. There are performance limits that are being played down way too much by the leading proponents. And they're caught in a moment, okay, where they must live by the AI motto, lie or die. You see, in reality, AI is being shattered into lots of little small pieces, call them applications, because they have not been able to achieve, nor is there any sign they'll ever even come close in the near future to achieving what they call universal artificial intelligence or general artificial intelligence. Yeah, the semantic distinctions, please. I think they all want to have that one thing that can answer every question you ask and do everything for you. Well, sorry. I mean, there's so many reasons for why it's not going to work, but they have held on to this belief to the extent that they can. Sam Altman is my favorite punching bag tonight, okay? So Sam Altman has been asking for outrageous sums of money to invest in these AI companies, OpenAI and others. And there's just no basis for it. I mean, you've had quite a few very honest Wall Street observers point out that when you look at the business model that Sam Altman is proposing, there's no road to profitability. There's no way people are going to get their money back if you're talking about $1 trillion of R&D investment. This is crazy. Anyway, I put up a link for a paper that gives the 10, or we'll say top 10 shortcomings for large language models. That's because that's where they're focusing right now. And the subtext of my op-ed is that, no, there's a lot more going on in AI than you'd realize. You did get that, right, Eric? That, yes. So we're both hot to trot on something called transformers, transformer AI. So we'll be talking about that, but there are other things too. And there's a concept I've talked about this from time to time, and I'll mention it again. The concept of emergence. All right, so first I'll use a chemical analogy for emergence. You see the hydrogen molecule and you see the oxygen molecule, and you put them together, two gases producing what? A water molecule? What? Huh? Wait. There is no way you could have predicted that, okay? So that's the nature of emergence. Salt, sodium, chlorine, a metal, another gas. But to produce salt, you and I, and they're both deadly, but put together we can consume them. In fact, our bodies need them. It gets confusing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, similar thing is happening in AI. Various research capabilities are being put together and producing things that nobody ever expected. Transformer AI is in that category, and there'll be related things as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. But in the meantime, Sam Altman is still hung up on large language models, which are hitting a wall. So what's it going to be? What's it going to be? Right? I think at some point, Sam Altman will be forced, in effect, to capitulate on these things because they're not working. And what we're going to see in due time is that the large language models are going to be supplanted by these other types of AI, which are in development. Now, one of the links that I put up in the op-ed, if you go look at it on our website, yankeet.news, is about what are called memristors, all right? And it's a fascinating story. If you want to fill in the gaps in your education in terms of computer technology, you definitely need to see this video that really does an excellent job of going through memristors. And it really does explain a lot. Okay, so all of this leads to the final point of this op-ed, which is that, again, so the term is neuromorphic computer technology. Another article I've been working on is basically titled that AI, artificial intelligence, needs more biological intelligence. And that's the situation here. So with neuromorphic technology, they are trying to draw more inspiration from biology. But you know, they're still I'm almost going to say it, trapped in the electronic modes. Even if you're going from digital to analog, as part of this conversation is right now, you're still not drawing upon the unusual ways in which nature manages information through neural functioning. So stay tuned, it's going to get interesting. Now let's get on to the news. Oh my goodness. It's kind of depressing. So where do I want to start? The Greenland model. I mean, if you're just looking at what they're talking about, okay, let me think. You know, just in the general news, you get all these different things from different places, and it's just a messy picture. So let's just start with the first part. We see this growing faction, that's the word I'm looking for, a growing fracture with Europe. NATO is getting dragged into this, as well as the 8 European countries that Trump wants to impose tariffs on because they're not willing to go along with what he wants with respect to Greenland. All right, and then he sent this, I don't know, I'm almost going to call it alarming letter to Norway, which he just sent to the other countries as well. Yeah. This would be part of President Trump's negotiating style. Now, I didn't read the art of the deal, but I would not be surprised if there are many times in the past when he had real estate deals going on where he had to play hardball in a manner not unlike this. So we'll see how this goes. And here's the part that's really hard. I need to share this with you. President Trump, that's right, big surprise, has a big ego, okay? Well, that big ego expects him to win all the time and be right all the time. He cannot accept that he makes a mistake. He would not, I don't think he's ever admitted to a mistake. Anybody here know when he's ever admitted to a mistake? Yeah, I can't think of anything.
I thought I made a mistake once, but I was wrong.
There you go. I'm stealing that from him. I thought I made a mistake once, but I was wrong. There you go. Okay, so that's sort of the background with President Trump. So in the foreground, though, now we have these postures that he's taking with respect to Greenland, threatening invasion, bullying Europe, threatening to leave NATO. This is heavy-duty stuff in my mind, but are we supposed to believe that he's bluffing? He's talked about bluffing before, and if you remember, he thinks that bluffing is a perfectly good negotiating tool. So is he bluffing here? You just have to give it time and see. I mean, the idea of him invading NATO is crazy. And it is kind of funny. So he makes a joke about Denmark added one more dog sled to their defense posture for Greenland. And then in addition, Germany sent 12 soldiers to protect Greenland, but they've already returned home. So that's just, I mean, this is the most silly kind of performative art that you can imagine. And in the middle of this whole thing, okay, so now has come forth an argument about Greenland that is it's very important, okay, but we have to ask ourselves, how seriously do we need to take this? Oh, wait, before I get to that, I need to add another thing. On what we'll call the security or military side of the equation, you have the geographic significance of the island, such as with the GI-UK gap and the Russian submarines. Okay, you got that part. But the part that isn't being talked about very much is, besides the argument that the ballistic missile paths, many of them have to go over Greenland if they get shot towards the United States, it's the space technology. Apparently, there's a whole other dimension here that hasn't been talked about with respect to the satellites overhead, how they communicate, where the communications go. Somehow, apparently, Greenland figures prominently in that whole process. I don't understand how, but it's something that's being discussed. Okay, so I've made that point. Meantime, will Russia invade Greenland? Will China invade Greenland? Seriously? I don't think so. So let's just review. Russia's having enough trouble in Ukraine as it is, okay? However, over the last, I'd say 15 years, we've clearly seen Russia build out new stations, new outposts along their northern border in Russia. And they all, you know, are in the general vicinity, being closer rather than farther away from Greenland. So all of that, which is seen as part of their military strategy, should give us concern, and Greenland would figure prominently with that. Meantime, China, okay, actually had the nerve, I think it was 2010, where Xi made a speech. It was 2010, it was later, claiming that China was a, quote, Arctic maritime nation. What? Since when is China an Arctic maritime nation? That's crazy. But it shows that they have designs on the Arctic as well. And of course, the argument is that with climate change, you're going to buy that crap. You're going to have the melting of the ice in the poles. It's going to open up the Northwest Passage for shipping. And guess what? You're going to be going by Greenland along the way. So there's supposedly that to be concerned about. All right, that said, I have trouble believing that China would ever invade Greenland as well. But you have the larger question that you have all these other resources to the north. We know there's plenty of oil north of Alaska into the Arctic, and God knows what else is there. So what do you think is going to happen? If they're going to feel the need to have those resources, they're going to show up. Quietly, if you haven't noticed already, you have China kind of sneaking into Siberia and taking back those lands that they think used to be theirs. Okay, so you got all of that going on. How's that going to unfold over the next 5 to 10 years? So if there's any pattern or sensibility to this, maybe President Trump is right. Maybe we do need to have control of Greenland as the, how should I say it, the last word on keeping them from expanding in the Arctic and northern regions. In addition, you know, Secretary Bessent and others observed that Canada is in no position to protect its north against any kind of encroachment by either China or Russia. So it's another case where Canada, I know you're going to hate to admit it, but you might need the United States' help. It's something to think about. So we would like to see more in terms of what kinds of plans China and Russia have. And so I remain a little skeptical, but there are enough different things happening, I believe, that I've just described to give you concern. So let's call it that for now. Oh, so the other thing. So now, all of a sudden, the New York Post puts out an article about how there was this forced sterilization program that Denmark had back in the 60s. Did you hear about this? Yeah, okay. So for them, it's a big expose. They found these women who'd had forced sterilization, never able to have children, and they are not happy about it, all right? So what was Denmark doing forcing sterilization of an indigenous population when they're supposed to be so enlightened and liberal about indigenous populations? We'd like an explanation. So to put it nicely, Denmark's crap is not clean when it comes to these sorts of things, even though they act like they are. The other part, and this is the other surprise, get ready for this one, Eric. Asian migrants working in Greenland to help prop up the economy. What's that? That's crazy. I mean, it's Greenland, for crying out loud. Just 50,000, what, 55,000 people who live there, and you're importing help from Asia for your economy? This is not making any sense. Okay, so I find it weird that these negative stories about Denmark are sort of slowly percolating to the surface now when they could have shown up sooner. I don't know why. I don't know why, okay? So, yes, Denmark has dirty hands. And I think more people are going to start to get pissed off at them. And Denmark has some explaining to do. And speaking of having explaining to do, are you ready for the next one? Ready for the next one? Well, anytime I see something about good old Dr. Fauci, I have to speak up. All right? Well, that old curmudgeon, when I saw this, okay, we got the link. Go to our website, find the link. This is too much. So, emails show Fauci and Collins plotted to circumvent impressive natural immunity data that would have made the vaccine, so-called vaccine they were pushing, unnecessary. Let's stop for a moment and just absorb this. You're telling me that the head of the NIH and his old boy there, Fauci, sat down together, that is, conspire, collude, together. Okay, not him sitting off in some corner, being some evil plotter. No, working together.
Right, and here it is 4
All right?
years later and still no one's talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that, and that's the other point. I'll be getting to that one. You can be damn sure about that. Okay. I remember when Dr. Fauci was twisting himself into a pretzel over defining herd immunity, okay, as well as natural immunity. And just all the crap that he was making up. And now we know why. Because, again, he was making money on the vaccine, okay? And so the thing that made them act like this was this huge Israeli study on natural immunity. So we put up the link for that. There was the preprint for it, so go check it out. It was on PubMed. So you got to go look at that. I just, wow. Okay, so we do have to say a few things about Ukraine, Russia. It's weird how things, perk up and then they quiet down. So right now, for all intents and purposes, things have quieted down for us with respect to Ukraine and Russia, but they're both still supposedly losing about 1,000 men a day each, and all kinds of equipment's being destroyed. You hear the stories about a good part of Kiev and other cities where they've lost power and they're not going to give up on it. Okay. But the big thing, and we're seeing these things, in my view, I know Wilm, who isn't here, would disagree, but to me, Russia is getting into more and more trouble. Their economy's getting weaker. Their interest rates are going up. Citizens are starting to complain about the inflation. And now you have China saying, we're not going to buy your damn electricity from you anymore, Russia, because it's too expensive. So here we are thinking about oil, forgetting that the Russians are selling China electricity. But now it's too expensive and the Chinese don't want it anymore. Well, what are they going to do about that? Who knew? Anyway, we have another link, is more of a broad update of what's happening in Ukraine. How can we not talk about Minneapolis, right? Too much noise, too much chaos, too much craziness. I think I'll start with the big one, okay? This is where you had these idiot Antifa types coming into a church service in St. Paul and breaking it up because they thought the pastor was associated with ICE. And they were wrong. Okay, do you think they'll ever admit they were wrong? No, of course not. But this kind of action is getting me nuts, all right? And I think it's getting a number of other people nuts. I would not be surprised, Eric, if there's going to be very soon a group formed called the Christian Soldiers. Okay, call it a security force, call it whatever you want, but we're not going to stand to have our churches violated like this. Ain't happening. So Antifa is going to have to start doing a better job of, quote, picking their targets. And then the other thing was the agents who are being kicked out of those hotels. We had this back and forth over the last couple of weeks about it, and now because of their fear of all this assault that's going on, they don't want to have anything to do with it. So it's going to be interesting. And you know what? In the middle of all this, I think we can agree. Dear Pam Bondi, get your effing act together. You are moving so slow. So slow. What is the matter with you? Okay, this has been a problem since the beginning. I'm going to go back and cite a report of a conflict that was between you and Kash Patel back in April concerning the Epstein papers, okay? And the account had Pam Bondi, you looking pretty bad, okay? Very fearful, lacking in courage and conviction, which really brings you close to lacking integrity. So you're going to have to do better, babe. You're going to have to do a lot better. You have your little successes here and there, but stuff like this, it just keeps adding up to the same thing. No perp walks. Nobody's been put in front of a camera. Nobody has to take the time to defend themselves because you're finally bringing the heat to them because of the laws they broke. No, none of that. None of that. Very disappointing. Okay? And, of course, the problem is because you're doing that, Pam, you're just making the PSYOP work of the liberals that much easier, okay? So they can take something like that and make it seem like there are bigger divisions within the administration than there really are. So you need to,
Maybe it's deliberate.
you got to tighten up, baby. Well, where? I don't know. Just to mention it, John Solomon from Just the News said to Steve Bannon today, don't worry, it's okay, we got this. Pam has got the prosecutors on it with respect to what's happening in Minnesota as well as other things. Still waiting for proof. All right, I got to move on. Iran. Another example of how we see so many things going on and it's awful. The violence in the streets, what the mullahs are trying to do, the threat to hang and kill people, then they draw back and now they're threatening to come back again. Yeah, what are we hearing? Next to nothing. Okay, but I did find a link that summarizes it. Also, there's something, TOUSI TV, Tausi TV. Look it up. I think Tausi TV, do you know Tausi TV? Yeah, so it's this guy in England, and I guess he's a Jewish British guy or something, but he does the best job in terms of providing up-to-date current information. So highly recommended. Meantime, I wish Wilm was here so I could congratulate him. Now, just to tell you, so Wilm has, he champions the idea that Britain has done a lot of underhanded things for the last 100 years. And, you know, I'd say there's some basis for that. So I put up a link. I think it's called the Promethean Group. And they pretty much play to Wilm's point of view that what we have in Davos on Wednesday when President Trump shows up, he's bringing his A-team, and it's going to be a bigger American contingent at the Davos Theater, as I call it, than has ever been there. So, as it was put by the woman, they're coming to present their terms of surrender for our friends. Terms of surrender. So look forward to it. And
Wow.
part of the theater, anyway. So we have a link here for the history of the story behind how Britain created Iraq is consistent with the point I was making about Britain. You definitely want to see that. Meantime, in the New York Post, we had an article about this newly appointed chief diversity officer, a black woman who is very upset with those white liberal women who keep telling her what reality is supposed to be, and she's buying none of it. So I find that very entertaining. Meantime, I call it Revolution in the Desert. There are a number of these small colleges being formed which are pushing classical education, and so I got a link to another one. You got to go see it. Meantime, with respect to Tina Peters, it looks like Governor Polis is maybe giving a little bit. He said, yes, I'm looking at possibly giving her a pardon maybe, but she's part of the list, so we'll see. Well, Governor Polis, I'm reminding you that we have not forgotten. There are a lot of people who have not forgotten. And when there's an opening that comes up, yeah, you're going to be hearing from us even more. Even more. Meantime, food additive of the week. Are you ready? Castoreum. Have you ever heard of castoreum? Okay. Castoreum is one of these examples of a substance that is, how should I put this, approved by the FDA as a natural flavor. Are you ready to find out what the FDA considers to be a natural flavor? Well, where does castoreum come from? The easiest way that I can explain it is that it's beaver poop juice. Okay? Beaver poop juice. Now, to be a little bit more technical, so what they do is they have this anal scent. They have these anal glands. It produces this scent and this lubricant or whatever. And it's, yeah, he's looking disgusted already. There you go. See, this is why we need the truth. All right? This is why you need to know these things. Oh my God. Okay. Beaver anal glands that secrete a substance which is used as a flavoring in vanilla ice cream and raspberry flavored ice cream. Are we okay with this? The FDA seems to be okay with it. So that's pretty wild. Okay, so that's castoreum. It's called a natural flavor. You'll never see the name castoreum on any, did I say it right? Yeah, castoreum. You'll never see it on any food label. So now you know. Okay, so the liberal media keeps trying, they keep lying. So with all the conflict, you find the liberal media doing the best they can to create division. They've tried to split MAGA, didn't work, so now they're back again. Now the theme they're trying to push is that President Trump is at war with his own country. Yeah, I don't think so, guys. I think you guys are a bit confused. Anyway, that's it in a nutshell. And now you get to enjoy the rest of this later. See you guys around next week. There'll be more to come.